Hello and welcome to Premier Study and Investing. It's great to have you. Thanks for stopping by. Okay, well, welcome back. So we're going to be looking at this week's market summary. Going to be looking at some economic data, but I think the number one story is actually what's going to happen with the Supreme Court ruling on basically the agenda to push through mandates for any employers who have over 100 employees. It's at the Supreme Court, and I think it's something that we need to keep our eye on. So we're going to look at a couple different news outlets because they're all different. They all have their different biases. And so this one is coming from CNN Politics, as you can see. Basically says the Supreme Court's conservative majority on Friday appears ready to reject one of President Joe Biden's most aggressive attempts so far to combat the spread of the pandemic, a vaccine or testing requirement aimed at large businesses. But there's a separate challenge, it says. But in a separate challenge, some justices seem more open to vaccine mandate aimed at certain healthcare workers. And so I don't know what's going to happen with healthcare workers, but there's something like 80 to 100 million workers in the United States. I would say it's somewhere around half of the workers, would be let go if something like that was to pass and they didn't comply essentially with the new updates. Look at this. It's from Yahoo News, comes out of Fox News Network. Supreme Court Sotomayor denies Biden rule is vaccine mandate. So they're going to say this isn't really a vaccine mandate despite clear OSHA language. So it's going to get a little bit into the language of everything, but let's see what it says. Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor aggressively pushes back on the term quote-unquote vaccine mandate during Friday hearing on Biden administration's contested COVID-19 regulations outlined by OSHA. Okay, basically. She's going to say this isn't a vaccine mandate. That's the wrong term. Let's see what else they say. There is no requirement here. It's a quote. It's not a vaccine mandate. It's something totally different, Sotomayor said during the oral arguments. So what is she saying? This appears to be tapped into a claim that because the mandate allows for mandatory vaccinations to be substituted by weekly testing, it's therefore not a mandate. Okay, number one, who has to pay for the weekly testing? Because those tests can be up to like $55 to $100. We looked at that before when we did the DCF calculations for OPKO Health. They were charging about $55, anywhere up to like $100 a test. That's a lot of money. That's $400 a month, right? Therefore, it's not a mandate. Well, that depends. Also, we'll see later that if you got to wear a mask, if you're regulated by OSHA to wear a mask, how much is that going to impede or inhibit your ability to communicate, facial expression, speak clearly, things like this. Just focus, right? OSHA said that part of its vaccination and testing emergency temporary standard, they call it the ETS, which covers employers with more than 100 employees. They give us this quote. The ETS requires covered employers to establish, implement, and enforce a written mandatory COVID-19 vaccination policy with an exemption for employers that instead establish, implement, and enforce a written policy that requires unvaccinated employees to undergo weekly testing and wear a face mask covering at the workplace instead of vaccination. It's from the New Yorker. Vaccine mandates have a bad day at the Supreme Court. The subtitle says, the tenor of conservative justices' questions suggests that the OSHA mandate, which would apply to about 80 million people, has little chance of going into effect in its present form. Like I said, if that goes the other direction and all those people are either out of work, there's a lot of people that are just not gonna go for it, right? Going over to Virginia, I know it's just like one small state, but anyways, they basically say in the highlighted section, they said that after their January 15th inauguration, the Commonwealth will, quote, quickly move to protect Virginians' freedoms and join challenges to components of President Joe Biden's vaccine mandate. One more story on this, and then we'll go and look at that economic data on jobs and the bond rates. So Louisiana's highest court said Oceaner Health employees don't have a legal reason to sue because the state gives employers the right to fire anyone as long as the reason doesn't violate other laws or state or federal constitution. Let's go over and look at some jobs data because I thought this was interesting. Remember, unemployment, right? For it to come down, two things have to happen, right? One of two things have to happen. Either less people are getting fired, right? So more people are keeping their jobs, meaning that's going to push unemployment down. Or more new people have to be coming into the system, right? That would also push unemployment down. Or based on their weird way of calculating it, more people would have to stop trying. What I want to try to point out with this is that if you don't know all the details about what these numbers mean, they might not be all that helpful. For example, look in the highlight section. Although only 199,000 jobs were created in December, less than half the market's forecasts, the jobless rate fell. Okay, they were expecting a lot of people. They got less than half of what they were expecting is coming in. So that's not, what they expected. Now, jobless rate fell. Okay, fine, because some new people came in. And I guess maybe not that many people left. But we're going to see people left. We saw that last week. We'll look at it again. A couple other things as we get there. U.S. consumer credit tops forecast. People are loading up on debt, maxing out the credit cards, can't pay the bills, things like that. If you're in a DCF and you believe in the valuations, U.S. 10-year bond yield hits near 2-year highs, up to 1.78%. You can see that here. People were definitely concerned about that 6 months ago. Now we're back up to 1.78%. I just want to look around the globe a little bit. Switzerland, 10-year bond yield at a 2-month high. It's not that impressive. Costa Rica inflation slips from near 7-year high. Okay. Ecuador, December inflation at over 5.5-year high. Okay. Germany, 10-year bond yield hits 31-month high. Italy, 10-year bond yield hits 17-month high. U.S. 10-year bond yield hits near 2-year high. France, 10-year bond yield hits 9-week high. Okay, so I'll just kind of leave it there with some of those bond yields. But the biggest thing I think to keep our eye on is like, what is going to happen? Because you would have a huge mix-up in the economy. If the Supreme Court does kind of like shift directions and decide, you know what, we do need to, require all these people who, it's basically like a constitutional type of thing. You hear people talking about civil war. Could you imagine if you lost your job and you're like dead set on not getting this thing right, and that there was a lot of people like that? You're just gonna have what? You're gonna go back to the pilots who had the sick in. You're gonna have all these people that just, what are they gonna do? Companies that employ over 100 people. This is like, what does it got to be? 90% of employers would fall into that category. What are you going to do? You're going to start your own plumbing business. You're going to start blogging. You're going to, go do some manual labor for, what would you do? I guess if you're an accountant, but, it'd be tough for a lot of people. Okay, so that's the wrap up for this week. Thanks so much for joining us.